It's actually what happened was I knew that the wedding was this week. I just wasn't. I had forgotten which night it was until I got a reminder. A good thing too, this afternoon that it was tonight, and the chuppah was called for 7 o'clock. The Jewish time thing doesn't really go so well with me. I can't adjust to it. I don't get used to it. So you try to account for it, plan for it. But because of the shiur tonight, I don't want to cancel the shiur. I don't have to cancel the shiur. And so I tried to get both in, and basically time the whole thing, how to do it, mincha mari, like plot the whole thing out because there's a whole evening ahead of you, how to get this thing to work out, and not make you guys wait too late. And so I went to mincha as regular, and it was actually interesting because I had to speak to somebody. There's some details here. I won't go through the details, but I had to speak to somebody, and because they were giving a shiur between Mincha and Mari, because of Erev Pesach, 3 days before Pesach, to give a shiur, so someone actually was giving a shiur. Normally just there's a blank period of time between Mincha and Mari where I do some learning. I count on that, and but today there was actually a shiur, and so forced me to go to Mari at another place, but because I went down to the hill to go to Nadav and Mari, I thought, maybe I'll just take the bus to the city now, because I had to go to Yerushalayim. That's the chasna was the Gutman call. And I'm trying to avoid taking taxis if I can help, because it gets expensive after a while. So there's almost like a challenge involved. Can we do this by bus and be there on time and get there on time, the whole thing? And so I did the hill, and I said, okay, now I'm going to try and catch Mariv and give a shul on the way, and actually I have to drop a little envelope at the bank as well. So wasn't exactly sure what to do, but in the end I decided to catch a 6 o'clock bus, which came more or less a little bit late, and but the traffic was unbelievable. It was just straight through. We got there literally very, very fast. It looked like there was going to be traffic at first, and we got there pretty fast. We got to Yerushalayim about 6:31, and if you just walk up the hill there's like a little shtibel there you can catch minyanim. Yeah. And I walked up, and it was nice outside and everything. So I walked to the shul, and I got there, and within a few minutes of walking there, a minyan began, so Baruch Hashem, because I wasn't sure how to catch Mariv after, before, during, it was a minyan, and try and be there, because the chuppah was called for 7 o'clock, so I figured 7 o'clock, 7:15, I actually asked him to let me know what the actual time was going to be, because, to decide whether or not it's even feasible to get here tonight. No one got back to me, so I just went by, and it was like under an invitation, chuppah at 7 o'clock, and I just took it to be around that time. And got Mari, got to walk by the bank, drop the envelope in, at the same time. The bus didn't come too long after, and the bus usually goes right on Kanfin Sharim, and then you can walk down or whatever. So, but a few buses go left, and then they go around down right by Good McCall. So I didn't know which one was which. I just know that this bus is now with these big numbers in them, 64, 74, good or enough. So I figured, okay, I'll just catch this bus. I'll get off on Kanfin Sharim. I'll walk down. And worst comes to worst, it'll be 5 minutes later. It's not going to probably make a difference at all. Turns out I got on the right bus. And I went down right in front of the hall, and I got up the bus at 7:03. The whole thing began like literally 7:03, and I get up the bus, and I thought, wow, this is Shemini Hashgacha Pratis, and I go right down to the hall, right, I think I'm like perfectly on time the whole thing. There's nobody there,
No.
Except the drummer. The drummer is like boom, getting his stuff set up. And there's a guy who noticed I come in, and he says, he sees I'm like looking around, and he says maybe it's not the right place, maybe it's the wrong hall. So I tell him the name, and he doesn't quite recognize the name. So I was pretty sure it was the right hall anyhow. But I went upstairs to the other hall. There was a chasna in progress, but it wasn't the one I had to have. I wasn't in the right place in the first place. There was nobody there whatsoever, not one person. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, is it too late to cancel the shiur? Should I cancel it? Because the thing is, somebody who I've been in contact over the years and sort of helping her through, into her process, and so she wanted to give me a bracha with a chuppah, because there's not a lot of people here. So I was like, I felt bad about not being there for that, but there just was nobody there. So eventually, I had some people started coming in, but I tell them that I wouldn't be there to pass them the good wishes, and then basically almost an hour later, I had to start catching the bus back to catch the bus to get here. And again, I got on the wrong bus. Going back, I think I asked the guy, does this bus go for Givat Shul? He said, yeah, sure. So I get on the bus, because I was going to get the Trumpiyado. But as it turns out that anyhow, the bus goes right by Binyanuma, which is even better in the air, because if I hadn't gone on there, I wouldn't get a seat for sure. And I got the bus here, and there was a little bit of traffic here and there. But it was so typical of Parashas Shemini in a sense, and this is like everything it's like going so well, going so right. It's like you just feel the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu guiding you, taking you where you have to go, and everything's like perfectly okay. That wow, it's like God's with me and He's making this thing happen. He's like because when all these things have to come together at one time, when you have a lot of things you have to do at one time, hashgacha pratis wise, there's a good chance they won't work out, but they are working out. You just feel like everything's going perfectly okay, but it's just one major glitch along the way. No chasana. It's like all this is going right. It gets you there, and then it's not there. And this is really, it's really what goes on in this week's parsha, which is also tied to Parshas Para too. This is the third of the four haftarahs in advance. The maftirs haftarahs and the maftirs primarily in advance of or around Purim Pesach time, and they're obviously it's very easy to make a connection between them and the Parashah, but this one specifically, because you have a very very important concept, an idea that comes out of this week's parsha that's crucial to everyday life, but certainly at this time of history because there's so much going on. I think UNESCO, there's a petition going on because UNESCO decided that the Kever Rocha really should be a mosque, and therefore they want the Israelis to give it to the Arabs. The idiocy. I won't drink to that. But it's like V'yidom Aharon, right? Nadav and Avihu. There's a whole discussion, and it's a whole parsha unto itself. And Shar HaGilgulim, Nadav and Avihu in the Chumash basically they just sort of appear. They make this terrible, tragic mistake. They're zapped in a very Kedushitic way, but they're zapped. And we would think that they just made a mistake and they got punished from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and there's no right in this situation until Moshe comes along and says, Aharon HaKohen, he says, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu told me way back, a little while ago, that through Kedoshim he's going to be sanctified, and I thought it was going to be you and me, but now I see, on the day of the inauguration, but now I see it's them, as they died on this specific day, and they're greater than us. So, at first, it's this consolation. It's Moshe really saying, boy, those guys blew big time when they got theirs coming to them, and they shouldn't have done anything like that. But my brother is mourning right now. I'm mourning. These are my nephews, and it's my brother's son, so I have to say something to console him, to make him feel better about the situation. So I'm going to tell him that really they're even greater than you and I. But Aaron, first of all, is going to see through it. And second of all, it's not really Moshe's style to make up things like that. He obviously had to mean, especially since HaKadosh Baruch Hu did say he would be sanctified through Kedoshim, through great people. So in Shar HaGilgulim, Nadav and Avihu is a very big parsha. Their neshamas are floating through history, and they're the ones basically who go into it. Because of them, Shmuel gets Nevuah. The neshamas go; they travel together. Nadav and Avihu are like two neshamas are part of one entity, so to speak, and they go into Shmuel, and when he gets them, he gets the neshamas. They get Nevuah. Eventually, they go into Pinchas because they go to Pinchas. He also gets Eliyahu Navi, becomes Eli Navi. So they're like souls that are traveling all through history. They're very, very they're stars on the soul scene, in terms of their role in Jewish history. So it's a major event that takes place. But in terms of the Lamais of everyday life aspect of Yidam Aharon, that's really the part that's phenomenal. Because the question is, what does it mean? I mean, what was he going to say in the end? What's Aharon HaGadol going to say? He's going to quit his job. Have many tennis against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He's going to have tennis against Moshe Rabbeinu. What you knew that somebody was going to die this day, you didn't warn us, didn't say something. That you just thought it'd be you and I, and kept your mouth, closed. Why didn't you simply, say, come on, guys, be super careful. Today is a very important day. We were warned in advance that someone's going to die. Let it not be you. Let it not be me. Be careful. Why didn't you warn me in advance? Maybe I would have spoken to my sons. They would have been more careful about the whole thing. But he says nothing. V'yidom Aharon. He remains silent. And you have to appreciate what that means, because it's not like simply he was burning inside and he was, and crying inside and just simply bit his tongue and held it back. It was more than that. It's basically, he got to a point where he didn't understand how the equation worked out. There was a question here, why it had to be that way. And one of the most important days of Jewish history, for that matter, the Chanukah Mishkan, the Shekhinah is going to come down. It did come down, on the Mishkan, and all the klais were accomplished. And there wasn't much more after that historically, except maybe the Beis Hamikdash, that was comparable. On Har Sinai, when Nadav and Avihu made the mistake of looking at what they shouldn't have looked at, because Baruch Hu didn't kill them back then, because that would have ruined the whole party. Would have ruined the whole situation. The whole city would have been dramatically different, and it would have destroyed the atmosphere of the situation. So what was different over here? But Baruch Hu didn't hold back, and after all that Aaron felt because the fire didn't come down in the first place, that maybe Baruch Hu hadn't forgiven him yet, and what makes things even worse, as we learn, as Rashi points out, that really all 4 sons should have died because of Aaron's involvement in the Egel Zahav. And you have all these dualities. That's the thing about Yiddishkeit. You have all the dualities. Yes, you're forgiven. No, you're not forgiven, right? Yes, you're the Kohen Gadol, but we're going to kill 4 of your sons because you're involved in the Egel Zahav. There's always like this aspect of Yiddishkeit. You're walking. They say you can't dance at 2 chasnas at the same time. Jews find a way to do it. They find a way to do it. Somehow, you can't eat at 2 tables. It's like somehow, the Gemara said you can't eat at 2 tables at the same time. You can't be wealthy in this world. It can't be spiritually wealthy. It's either one or the other. You're going to be a Tamachach and a Gadol Ador and not be wealthy, or vice versa. But you can't eat from 2 tables. Somehow we get around that. We do it anyhow. People do it anyhow. We're always like, look at that. They're so clever, those guys. I didn't what they're able to accomplish. They went right against the Gemara. It was like there's always like this 2 double-edged sword by Judaism. You plan to go to Chassid, plan to be Yotzi, the mitzvah plan to be involved, get everything the way it's supposed to be done, and in the end, of all the Chassid, if they're sitting down to that right now doing the chuppah, I'd be surprised. The guy says to me, he says, when I said to him, I said, no, it's called for 7 o'clock. I looked again to see that maybe it's just Kabbalah, postponing it was 7 o'clock, and the chuppah no, there's chuppah, I thought every line, 7 o'clock, so you have to go 7, 7:15, 7:30, maybe something like that, and he goes, Muchar, Moed Muchar, and you could just see the whole thing was, but that doesn't make a difference because the Kosh Baruch Hu has his cheshbonos. In the end, he does what he does because there's an ultimate master plan. It's like somebody, and this was Purim is all about the same idea. It's what the Purim, the Pesach. This is the whole where Gula really, the basis of Gula actually is. But imagine somebody as a mashal, somebody who's living in the town below. And there's a mountain, it's a small little town cut off before you had internet, before you had all this global communication networks and all that. But it's just a small little town cut off from the rest of society. Once in a while, people go to the city, they cut back from the market, they tell stories and things like that. But the average person living in the town knows from nothing. So they're living in the shtetl, basically. They don't understand what's going on. But there's this plaque on the side of this mountain that says, "All who climb this mountain shall know the secret of life." Ever heard this mashal before? Probably not, because I made it up. Right? All the people who climb this mountain will know the secret of life. And people walk by, people try to climb the mountain, they get tired, they get back down again, they never get the secret of life, right? And they can't understand what it means. Like what could possibly be up there that could be the secret of life? In the meantime, people get jealous and people steal and people, there are people who have nice midas and not so nice midas, and it's like life goes on. It's the average petty, mundane life of the average individual, and people get locked up in jail. People make money. People go to business. Whatever. It's like it's normal. It's normal. But people can act in petty ways sometimes, and people get lost in everyday affairs and short-term goals as opposed to long-term goals. And they walk by this sign day after day. All who climb this mountain shall know the secret of life. So one day this young man says, I've got to climb this mountain. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to do it. But people have gone up and they haven't come back down before. And people, tried it halfway. They came back early. What makes you think you can do it? I don't know. I have to do it. I'm going to climb this mountain. That's just the way it's going to be. And he starts eating the proper foods to strengthen himself. And he exercises. He has equipment. And anybody who climbs this mountain, there's always a big affair. They get the meirah there and the key, the whole thing. The band, they play music as the guy goes up into the mountain. And they say goodbye, because who knows, he'll come back again. And this guy decides he's going to do exactly that, and he's going to climb the mountain. And the day comes, and there's big fanfare, and he sets off by himself with supplies, and he climbs the mountain. He goes up a certain height, and he doesn't realize how high it actually is, because it's in the clouds, right? So he keeps climbing, and he eats his food, and he makes portions to make sure that he doesn't run out of provisions. And he keeps taking a bit more and climbs a bit more, and he's tired, he's getting lonely, looks back down, and so he keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And eventually what happens is that he gets to the point where he just gets so tired he wants to give up, but he pushes himself because the embarrassment of going back down again, not having accomplished his goal, besides the secret of life. Who knows when you come back again, right? So he climbs and he climbs and he climbs, and what happens basically is that after a while, he's about to fall to pieces, he's like totally worn out, but he realizes he must be close to the top, because now the clouds are breaking, and he looks up, and sure enough, he can see the top. It's with an eyesight, and he goes to the top of it, and he finally gets there, and he looks around, and he just passes out, and he finally wakes up about 5-6 hours later. You don't have to tell the story with all these details. Just embellishes a bit more, but and it didn't happen to me. But he wakes up and he looks around, and all he sees is a mountaintop. A tree, a bush, some grass growing here, maybe a little snow here and there. But he's looking around. There's nothing there, and he realizes that the whole thing was one big joke. Someone played a joke. Someone came along and put a plaque up the side of the hill that said, "All who climb the mountain now will know the secret of life," and he's like totally distraught because now they've gone all this way for nothing and not gained anything because of the disappointment. But worse, if he comes back down again, now you realize why some people didn't come back down again. Because they come back down again, or they went someplace else instead, because they come back down with no secret of life, people would become very distraught. How do you do it? So he thinks to himself, and he starts to break down, and he cries, and how can I fall into this thing, and what's going to happen? Where's my life going to go? The secret of life, And eventually, as he starts to become more philosophical about the situation, he looks down. He's sitting on the side, looking down, and he sees the town below, very very distant. He can see it's like looking from the airplane. Ever looking from an airplane back down? It's always so cute. It looks like a little model. I want one of those. You see little trucks on the highway, and it's amazing. Within a few seconds, they were all so big at one point. Now they're also small. It looks so real. It's one big, massive train and car model. That's how it looks, and it's even smaller for him. And he's seeing people moving around, doing all kinds of stuff. And he thinks to himself, he says, "This is very interesting because when I'm down there, all I can see is the world that I'm in. Right? If I'm on block A, I can't see what's happening on block B or block C, right? Because basically I'm limited in my vision. But from up here, I can see the whole town in one eye shot. I can see people unloading stuff over here who have no idea what's going on over there, and the person leaving there driving to go shopping doesn't understand it's all being put in the whole. You can see the whole thing." And as he's looking down, seeing this, all of a sudden he gets a sense of this philosophical outlook towards life, and he realizes how mundane the things that concerned him, how petty life had become for him in everyday life. Because when you're living amongst all the details, you get pulled in. You get pulled in. You get sucked in. You become part of it, and it becomes your world, becomes your whole reality. Eventually, what happens is you lose the big picture because you're so consumed by the small picture. And as you become consumed with the small picture, the important stuff becomes small, and the small stuff becomes important, and you become confused, and you get lost, and eventually you look back and say, what happened to 25, 35, 40 years of my life? And before a person leaves this world, they start to question and say, what did I do with my life? Why was it so important? Why did I spend all this time, all this money? The whole thing. And now looking down, I think to myself, I have to think life through differently. And all of a sudden it occurs to him, that's what the sign meant. All who climb this mountain will know the secret of life. Anybody who climbs this mountain is able to look down on life from this perspective and see the big picture all in one eye shot and see what's important, understand and appreciate what matters most in life, will be able to have the proper priorities, and that's the secret of life. Having the proper priorities, being able to take things into perspective, having a hashkafa that's accurate and really aligns itself with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's true your Shemayim. True your Shemayim means that you look at the world the same way Kodesh Baruch Hu looks at the world. Amalek is constantly pulling us in and trying to get us to become involved in small, petty details that ultimately don't make a big difference in the end. Even though right now they do. Even though right now they confuse us and they really look so real and so all important and so emotionally involving that they wear you down and drain you till you almost have nothing left at the end of the day to think about things that count the most. And looking down, he realizes this is it. And he doesn't want to leave. Because when he's up here, you know what it's like when you're, it's the same way, for example, people go to the Grand Canyon. It's always the most, I haven't been there actually just flew over it, but never was actually there. But people tell me that you go there and people start whispering, wow, this is amazing. Look at this, tremendous. right? The one place you could probably yell the most, right? People are whispering. The Swiss. I was in the Swiss Alps. That was, it was interesting. It was pretty awesome. But you're looking up and you're just totally awed, and it just takes you out of your world. You're different. You're transformed. It's almost when you're in the city, you get lost in all the details. You go to the countryside, or you're outside at nighttime, and it's fantastic. The other night, on the day before Purim, Shabbos morning, no, could be Shabbos morning. When was it? It must have been, I think, Sunday. Oh, was it Purim morning? I can't remember which morning it was. I think it must have been. So I took a picture, so it could be Shabbos morning. No, that was Purim morning.
Right.
Maybe it's Friday, but the moon, at about 4 o'clock in the morning, the moon was like at the end of the street, this big, huge orange ball, half orange ball, and it was just like incredible. The orange moons are not the best symbol for Klal Yisrael. Fortunately, the moon on Purim was a nice, big, huge white. I told my son once, I said, that moon looks so big. So it turns out, if you look at the news the next day, they were actually talking about how the moon was the biggest it's been since 1990. Supermoon, because as opposed to superbus, right? And it came 11,000 miles closer in its orbit to the Earth. So I hadn't drank too much on Shabbos. It really was bigger than it normally is. It's a big, huge, bright moon, but it was awesome. It was awesome, and these solar eclipses and things like that. And it's a solar eclipse. Who cares? It's a solar eclipse. The sun is going to be covered for 15, 20 minutes, but everyone rushes out. Everyone's going to watch it, capture on film, and make these time delayed shots and all that because it's awesome. But that's how much people just watch people with their. It was just an interesting thing to watch on the bus. People with their phones, their smartphones, their cell phones, and they're this thing, that thing, and the games and all because people. We need things to pull us out of our reality. Things are all of our concerns are pulling us in the entire time. Things don't always work out, and they don't always make sense. This guy at the top of the hill, what he does? He thinks to himself, I don't want to go back down again. Now I know why people don't go back down again, because it's so wonderful up here, because the perspective was so great, you feel so philosophical, and so close to God, because you're on top of the mountain, But it's the hashkafa that makes you feel so close to Kosh Baruch Hu. So, he burns, makes some charcoal, he draws a little sketch, because he wants to take back a picture of the scene with him that he'll always look at when he goes back down again. He gets consumed and absorbed and swallowed by the details. He'll always be able to remember somehow on some level what he saw. And that's really what V'idom Aaron is all about. Because it wasn't that Aaron was simply saying, if I cry right now, if I mourn too much, like Aharon HaGadol with the death of Sarah, the chosa, or the chot is small, because he didn't mourn too much. Because mourning too much would indicate he didn't accept the Metzias of what happened. But there was something unjust about it, which is certainly the way we looked at a lot of people because of what she died. But he wanted to show that Gam Tova, this too fits into the master plan for Kosh Baruch Hu, for Ma'aseh Bereshis. And even though I can't figure it out, that's the thing, I can't figure it out. We plan our lives and we live our lives and we plan history a certain way. Like the people, for example, just thinking about what's going on right now with Japan, the situation. So now they're more worried than they are about a nuclear meltdown is a global meltdown, a financial meltdown, because Japan is the third largest economy in the world, or was, before this whole thing happened. Totally unexpected. It turned Japan into a receiver more than a giver, because now they're in desperate need of money from all around the world, which requires huge loans and all. It just shifts the whole, not just the whole coastline of Japan, but it shifts the whole financial coastline of Japan, where basically the whole economy reverses itself to some degree and puts incredible stress on a world economy that's already suffering from global stress going back to 2009. On top of the fact, you have a war basically going on once again. It's amazing how we just slid into this one. Just like the other one was like all fanfare and newspapers and headlines and all that and preparation. This one just like Pete just showed up all of a sudden like a domino effect. Because in Tunisia and it's going to Egypt and it's going to over here and Syria and Jordan. The whole thing. Next thing it's in Libya, and next thing we have Allied forces basically dropping bombs and blowing up Gaddafi's his compound and all. It's like and the Arab world's not so happy about this thing. They're not so content about this. It's like they're not so, and Farrakhan was giving Obama warnings, apparently, telling him not to interfere in Libya's affairs. Not that fair can count for very much, but counts even less from that. But the fact that he doesn't have the haskama of everybody to do things like this, and on top of that, from the other side, he's being criticized for not doing enough. There's so many loose ends today. There's so many details. Everyone wants answers and to tie things up. You know, this video, it's amazing. This we upload these things. I upload these things once a week. Basically, we do this here, edit a bit, put up the next day. To get 100 people to see it within 1 week is pretty good. The one we made last week, with the shir last week, within 6 days, basically over 800 people watched that video. That's no. That is something like there's something that I thought was a mistake. I kept that maybe YouTube made a mistake. I never had a situation like that. And the reason why is because basically we addressed the issues of the world today, the situation, the scenario, and people are so hungry for questions and answers that people are linking each other. And hundreds of people all of a sudden within a few days, just hundreds of people just went and watched this thing. Okay, I'm responsible for 600. 200 people watched it. Keep going back, putting up. But it's like this. People want to know. They want to tie up the loose ends because basically what's going on right now is all to do with Vidam Aharon. This week's Parashas Shemini. We have a situation. Nadav and Avihu. They meant well. They meant a good thing. And most people agree. Whatever they were doing, it was the wrong way, the wrong thing, the wrong time. I once saw a Pshat, we mentioned before, but had this happened before Har Sinai, they would have been heroes. Would have been perfectly okay to do what they were doing because there's reasons. Their cheshik and their dvekas Hashem, they're trying to achieve was fantastic. But the Torah had been given, and there was a manhi, and there was a malamed for Klal Yisrael. He was Moshe Rabbeinu, and once the halacha was given, you have to live by the halachas. You can't break the gedarim, even if you have the right intentions. Right now, Kosh Baruch Hu's koveh because you might be on that madrega, but nobody else is on the madrega. And once people start freestyling, you see what happens. Where things going again, Judaism starts breaking up and splintering before you know no one's doing it the way they're supposed to be done. Whatever. The point is that in spite of all that, give them natural deaths, let them die from the plague. Why, in the midst of this entire fantastic celebration, which represents the connection, the chibur of man with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, in the ultimate sense, where the Shekhinah comes down on, it's worse. It's worse than getting a brand new car and smashing it the first day. It's way worse, right? It's worse than an earthquake. Building a whole town, and all of a sudden an earthquake comes along and breaks the whole thing down. Or missiles come and destroy the building. I'm just hoping that this new trains that they're building right now in Yerushalayim, it's like getting close to being finished. I hope that no one's planning anything, after all the work they put into it, that it shouldn't be the subject of a terrorist attack because it's just like too good to be true until now. It goes right by East Jerusalem as well at the same time. But it's like it's worse than all of that. Here is basically the whole celebration, the whole arena, the whole joy, the whole connection, the whole sense of accomplishment and worthiness. This wasn't simply an exercise in building, construction. This was an exercise in how mankind can create an environment that the Shekhinah feels comfortable going into and connecting to. And in the midst of all of that, at the height when people are the most joyous, this is like what's happened a few times. A person, for example, I know one case where somebody at the chuppah, the chassan died of a heart attack. It was a second marriage, and they were a little bit older, and at the chuppah itself, under the chuppah, they just basically got married there in that spot, moment in time, and the chassan had a heart attack. Right there at the chuppah, and they died. It's like everyone's coming for simcha, and it's probably even greater simcha because it's the second marriage, and people are older, and it's not so easy to make shidduchim, for people like that. And all of a sudden, you have a situation like that where they're all there and collected, and it's looking so good, and it's working out, and all of a sudden, the exact opposite happens, and it's hashgacha pratis. That's the bottom line. It's hashgacha pratis. Because Baruch Hu, or somebody, goes full term. It's about to give birth to a child, and in the last week, the child dies. Or through the birth itself, or the mother, chas v'chalila. The height of the simcha, the joy itself, Totally stripped away, just like that. We're not talking about depressed people with more depressing situations. We're talking about both allowing people to get to the highest of heights and then knocking them right back down all over again. And so a person stands back and they look and they say to themselves, wow, it's like failure. We failed. We failed. We didn't succeed. We got close. Shlomo HaMelech built the base of Mikdash. He built the base of Mikdash. He was able to build a base of Mikdash. And he married Bas Paro that night. And the moment he married Bas Paro that night, it was already nigzar that the Romans are going to destroy Bayis Sheni. Wait a second. We haven't finished with Bayis Rishon yet. Right? What do you mean Bayis Sheni? You mean Bayis Sheni, destroying Bayis Sheni already implies we're going to destroy Bayis Rishon, rebuild Bayis Rishon, and then destroy that too. I mean, like that's super depressing. Like Moshe Rabbeinu says, I will be with them in this exile as I will be with them in future exile. Moshe says, can we drop the last part? Here they are suffering in Galus Mitzrayim. It's enough. Hashem will save you from Mitzrayim and from Bavel and Yavon and Edom and Yishmael. Maybe we'll just stick around a little bit longer. We'll just die off naturally. Now, who needs all that? What's the point of redemption to go back into Galus again? I can appreciate this financially. Basically, 1 month you have, 1 month you don't, right? It's like you go up and you go back down again. Relationships the same way, with kids the same way. You solve one question, one problem, you're over, it's like finished, boom, you're hit by another one just like that. Just when you thought that was all over with, it happens all over again like that. And one thing after the other thing after the other thing, we're all standing back and we're saying to ourselves, wow, we were so close, he built the base of me. Why would he marry Bas Paro? Okay, he had this kavana to bring him to the country of Shechina, and by doing that, because she came from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is the Klippa, he's the Kedusha, and to conquer the Klippa. The Kabbalah, has no limit of how you can answer questions like that. But at the end of the day, it was wrong. Almost cost him everything, right? At the end of the day, it's a source of Churban Bayis Rishon, Churban Bayis Sheni, whatever. All the kavanas in the world doesn't make a difference to him. And the Mishkan became so close. Fine, we still do the Avodah, the Mishkan is still working, the Shekhinah is still there, we go weiter, but still, it's such a pagam in the celebration. It seems like such a failure. But that's only because we live in Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh. That's mankind's attitude. We want the perfection of Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh, meaning that everything has to work out in this world for us. It has to work out. If it doesn't work out, it's a failure. It's amazing in my mind how many times I catch myself thinking this way. How I have to perfect things and make things perfect. If it's not perfect, it's not working the proper way, somehow it's a failure. Okay, the situation failed. It doesn't mean it's a failure. You don't know what the avodas Hashem was at that moment. And the avodas Hashem was at that moment in this week's parsha. When everything happened, they dafka, Kodesh Baruch Hu built them up, and they got built up, and they reached this fantastic height, physically, spiritually, got that point, and then Nadav and Avihu were killed. V'yidam Aaron, that's the whole crux of the parsha. That's the whole avodas Hashem in the parsha. That's what it was all about. It was all to get to that point of Yidam Aaron. Why? Because Kodesh Baruch Hu says, in this world, Olam Hazeh, you don't have Gilu Shechin all the time. There's times that Kodesh Baruch Hu Megal himself. In the midst of, you live in Mitzrayim, it always bothered me. After the Holocaust, 6 million Jews survived, the world, but from Europe, a fraction of the Jews survived. 6 million Jews died. What kind of celebration was there after the Holocaust was over? You ask people if they celebrated after those who survived the camps and came out of the Holocaust, if they could celebrate. They were grateful to be alive, perhaps. Not everybody, but a lot of people are grateful. And not just that, some people survived the Holocaust. They died in the displacement camps because they were given chocolate bars by soldiers who didn't know you can't give people who've been starving for years chocolate bars. It's just too much for the body, and people have the system. They died, the system broke down. They survived the whole Holocaust just to die from eating a chocolate bar, or other things. Along the way, people went back to Poland after being in the camps, and they got shot by Poles. As they're coming back, Poland had the highest rate of anti-Semitism after World War II, even though they weren't Jews there yet. It's like so many weird, bizarre situations that just don't make sense. So Kadosh Baruch Hu took them to that point. He built them up. He got them to the point where everything looked, tremendously fantastic and perfect, and we were successful. And the truth is, there was a moment, and there is the possibility that there is a threshold you can cross over and usher in the next period of time called Yemot HaMashiach. There was a moment where it's possible. We hadn't yet achieved it, but it was potentially, at that moment in time, it was there, but there were things still to be fixed up. And then the whole thing happened with Nadav and Avihu to get to the point where Moshe came down to Cohen and Yidam Aaron. Because Yidam Aaron, that's the perfect bridge between Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. Because basically it's mankind's way of saying that even though I yearn for the perfection of Olam Haba, I don't forget I'm living in Olam Hazeh. I know that in Olam Haba it's all perfect. The perspective is precise. We'll see the world the way Kadosh Baruch Hu sees the world. We'll relate to everything, the priorities, the way we're supposed to relate to them. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says at the end of the day, Kadosh Baruch Hu brings the Yitzhahara and Shechsa before Tzaddikim and the Rashai. They both cry, right? And what does Tzaddikim say? We never realized it was so big. We didn't understand how powerful it was. Had we known, we might never have taken it out. We thought it was only a small little hair, and that's what we dealt with it. And then they're showing, they cry because they're like, if we only had known how small it was. To us, it appeared like a mountain. So what was the difference? That's the whole difference. There's lots of differences. There's lots of ways to speak about the distinction between tzaddikim and Rishonim. There's lots of ways, right? But the Gemara comes down to this. A person's perspective, the whole perspective. We are now heading into a period of time that's very complicated. Very complicated. What happened in Japan is not the end of it. Just like what happened the week before that was not the end of it. And the week before that was not the end of it. Things are happening more frequently to such an extent that it's catching everybody's attention. Not just the people, not just the end of days fanatics who wear those things, the end is near, and they stand in the corners basically. They were the first ones, okay? But they've been doing it for 6,000 years anyhow. Rain and shine, right? There's a belt that's passed down all through generations, father to son, right? And then comes the people who are a little bit more tied into what's happening historically, and they talk about it, but they're also like kind of brushed off as big fanatics, right? And then comes the next people, but now today everyone's talking about it. Everybody is talking about the situation worldwide. And what's amazing, you can believe in conspiracies that the big money people and the upper echelon and government and all these political bigwigs are all planning worldwide, one world government, new world government, whatever and what's it again? New world order, right?
New world
It's very good. I forgot that term. That's a good sign. But New World Order, and all these conspiracies about where the world is being shifted and causing that situation happened, that's what should happen, and the oil price, then comes along a major earthquake, you can't plan. I don't think they planned that. I don't think anyone went out there to the coast of Japan and ignited some kind of underground nuclear blast that caused this earthquake to happen. I think Kadosh Baruch Hu made this earthquake happen and shifted everybody's plans, the whole world. Because that's really what is that Kadosh Baruch Hu, his way of saying that until now there were two separate worlds. There was Olam Hazeh and there was Olam Haba, and they were apart from each other, very much apart from each other. People live in this world like it was literally Olam Haba. The whole modern world is based upon trying to give people a sense of Olam Haba and Olam Hazeh, the perfect life. Why you can have it for just $14.95 plus a smartphone plus the whole thing. And fast food and more money, and Olam Haba is this in reality. Tzaddikim are people basically who never get caught up in this whole world. Their perspective is the mountain perspective. It's the perspective of the tzaddikim spoken about the Gemara. The way they look at the world, or hashkafa, they never get pulled down into the nitty-gritty details of everyday mundane life. What's important is important. What's not important, they push aside. They remain steadfast with their priorities, as according to Kadosh Baruch Hu's perspective and vision, Torah's portrayal of those values. Everybody else gets caught up in it. This basically is forcing everybody to change their perspective. The economy fell out, people's priorities shifted. As governments, changed and the whole situation in Egypt and in Libya and Syria, the whole Arab world, you look at CNN, like the Middle East, what is it called? The Middle East unrest, nation by nation. As I can go, I'll show you country by country what's going on. Out of nowhere. No one really saw that coming again. Because people's values are shifting. The world is shifting. Everything is shifting because Baruch Hu is basically bringing Tanakh back. It's that the world of Olam Haba is now merging again with the world of Olam Hazeh. The way it once was in Abraham's time, and Yitzchak's time, and Yaakov's time. Not for everybody, but at least for them. But at the end of history, it has to happen for all of mankind. Because Yemot Mashiach is not just another Tekufa. It's not just another threshold we have to cross over to another period of time. It's two worlds overlapping. It's literally almost like two concentric circles overlapping like this, right? Where basically you have the eternity of the world to come emerging and entering into the world of Olam Hazeh. And because it does that, some of the quality of Olam Haba starts to enter into the world of Olam Hazeh. So as a result of that, you start getting a sense of eternity and perspective. But Yamahu Yishem Echad Shmo Echad is the description of Yemos Mashiach. But that description is really the description of Olam Haba. Why? Because the eternity aspect, the eternal quality of Olam Haba begins to enter the world of Olam Hazeh. Until eventually you get to Chis and Mason. And eventually what happens, the overlap is so complete, Olam Hazeh no longer exists on the level that it exists today. It only exists at the level of Olam Haba. There will be a world. There will be a physical world, even in Olam Haba. Physical compared to what's coming after it, but not physical compared to what's today. Today, basically, physicality, well, nothing like that in Olam Haba. But it's always been there. It's always the underpinning. Kabbalah goes into more detail about how that's true because the light of Or Ein Sof is inside everything that's physical. So by definition, everything in the physical itself has an eternal equality to it. By definition. By definition. We just get distracted by that and focus on the outside part. People are sensing the change. People are beginning to feel more of a sense of eternity. Not everybody. There will always be people that resist. But people who are open to it. And that's what has to happen. We have to shift our values, shift our priorities, and get to the point where we begin to realize that Olam Hazeh is not where the answers are. The Yidam Aaron's one way of saying that even though there are loose ends, there are things happening that just don't make sense in a Olam Hazeh point of view, they make perfect sense from a Olam Haba perspective. That's Yidam Aaron. It's a way of bridging both worlds at one time. And that's the Nisayon that we're all going to go through right now. Because you can feel the need to fetch. You feel the tension, whether it's financial, whether it's emotional, whether it's national, international, whether it's our government, their government, whatever the situation, the whole thing is becoming so confusing and so irritating. That's the overall feeling that I think a lot of people have today. I certainly feel that. It's irritating. There's a lot of very irritating things going on today. Things that shouldn't happen. It's just bothering. Aside from the fear. Fear is something secondary, as opposed to irritating. The things that are being said, the decisions that are being made, the perspectives that people have, the priorities, it's irritating. V'yidam Aaron means that, okay, it's all part of this master plan, this master picture. I have to deal with it. I have to act responsibly towards it. But I have to keep my emotions in check as well. I can't be pulled in. I can't be consumed by it. Because the moment I do, I lose my sense of identity. I lose my sense of connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu.